Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor pregame podcast. Yeah, not just your regular podcast. It's a pregame podcast because the football season's back. Travis Davison is back, joining Parker Thune, myself, Brandon Drum, and we're here to talk some OU Temple. We're here to talk OU 2024 season. We're here to talk SEC. We're here to talk it all, and we're here to talk it with you guys. Can't wait to get this stuff started for the season. This is going to be exciting, guys. Parker, do we have bills to pay before we get going, or yes, no, maybe?
No, don't gotta worry about that. I think we have it built in on the audio end. So
There we
I want
go.
to remind you all to download the Autograph app if you haven't already. One-stop shop for any and all OU content across the market. Link.ag.fan/boomer is your hyperlink, and use promo code BOOMER to get started for free. There's a link in the description below if you're watching on YouTube. That is all. I would imagine this will probably be the most concise pregame podcast we do all year, fellas, because, well, there's just not a whole lot to talk about with
Yeah,
regard to
you
the Temple Owls, man. It,
we hope. Post game.
I don't think I have that much power, Brandon. I don't think I have that type of jinx power. This is a program, the Temple Owls, fellas. This is a I should is are I don't even know. Is a program, are a program. The Temple Owls is/are a program. The Temple Owls, gentlemen, were 3-9 a season ago.
Did you just
And
try to grammar yourself in the middle of a
I
podcast?
really did, yeah. My brain was you
All
could,
right.
if you could see and
Yeah.
hear the wheels turning there as I tried to figure that out.
It's
Because generally I don't have to
yes,
do that. But
because R would be more than one team, right? Right?
I don't just don't get me any more confused
Okay.
than I already
Okay.
am, Brandon.
All
Don't
right.
don't even go down that rabbit hole. I'm already too far down it. This program, fellas, played 3 games against Power 5 competition last season and scored a grand total of 14 points in those 3 games.
Okay.
Not great.
What?
Yes,
That's awful.
I brought the facts today. 3-9 last year,
The game
a total
notes.
of 14 points against Power 5 opponents. They lost 36-7 to Rutgers. They lost 55-0 to SMU. And for the life of me, I can't remember what the other Power 4 opponent they played was, but they managed 7 points in that one as well.
Do is this worse than Arkansas State last year? Because I thought Arkansas State, didn't they end up being halfway decent? And what
I
was their
think they won
record?
8 games last year. They won
Yeah.
7 or 8 games. They went to a bowl game.
Yeah.
Temple's not doing that, but they're in a would you consider them in a tougher conference, I guess?
Yeah. The American's better than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and with that, they didn't perform well last year. They're going to be a defense. I mean, as much as Temple can be, they'll be a defensively led team this year, which is odd considering their head coach is maybe the best running back coach ever. I know that sounds crazy to say, but just you know, looking at his resume,
This is
it,
Texas's former running back coach, isn't it?
yeah, and Florida's and Ohio
Yeah.
State's, Chicago Bears and Villanova's, Brian Westbrook. Yeah, yeah, it is. So
Wow.
it's shocking how bad they are on offense, considering he's won 2 national titles. Run game coordinator, running backs coach, things like that. But yeah, the team is not good. Parker brought up their 3-9 record. I think they've won 3 games 3 years in a row now. Stan Drayton took over after he left Texas. He was the 2021 with Texas. 2022, he took over a 3-9 program, proceeded to go 3-9 and win 1 game in conference. Last year, they went 3-9 and won 1 game in conference. This year, I am a betting man. I'm going with 3 wins and 1 win in conference. I don't know. There's a trend.
If nothing else, they are consistent. I've been perusing the game notes here, some light reading this morning to dive into exactly what type of superlatives we might see for
Bad.
Oklahoma on Friday if Temple is as bad as we anticipate them to be.
Uh, I mean, Parker, you and I talked about it on the live. Didn't we both have it almost a shutout? I think you were nice enough to
I
give him
gave him a
three
field goal.
points. Yeah, you were
I
nice
gave
enough
him
to
a
give him
field goal.
three. I gave him none. And look, and we'll give our predictions later on in this podcast, but OU's defense is the best on paper. We got to say on paper because we haven't seen it, right? We just hear what we hear, and know what we know at this point, and that's through third through people, right, that do see it. Um, but on paper, it's the best defense in the last decade at OU, and so and that's with a true freshman starting at defensive tackle. If that tells you how bad it got at Oklahoma. Or Jaden Jackson is just that good, which is something else we can talk about. I don't know. And we're totally bearing the lead, by the way, to Marco Murray. We've just totally just kind of meandered away from that a little bit. We'll get there. But if we're not going to give Temple even remotely a chance to score more than 3 points, I don't know how you think they're going to score three. Are they going to score 3 points on like OU's third team defense? Is that what you're expecting? Like a late field goal? Do you expect them to score early and then OU tighten the hatches down? Like I'm interested to hear this because I got them laying a big old fat goose egg against Oklahoma, much like Arkansas State. But we didn't expect the Arkansas State one last year. That's when we kind of figured, you know what, this Oklahoma team might be pretty good. It might be pretty good.
I just think it's cruel to predict a shutout. I respect the fact that you've gone that route. I feel obligated to give them 3 points at the very least.
I, I'm giving them seven. So I don't. I mean,
Wow.
I didn't realize how charitable I was being, but I don't know. They've got not dudes, but they've got a couple guys that they've returned. They like a couple of their wide receivers. They like their tight end a lot. But they're going to be no match for that defense. In his press conference, Drayton said about Oklahoma's defense, watching it last year, he said, with the change um, of coordinators, he said there's nothing on their defense that was broken. So, he doesn't really have to fix much. He went on to talk about, our secondary depth and things like that. Didn't mention anything up front. Didn't mention even Danny Stutzman, but
Mhm.
mentioned a couple safeties and whatnot. So it was interesting, though. The whole press conference was really interesting. He was very combative with his own media, and maybe that's a guy that has only won two conference games in the last 2 years. Um, I don't know, but he wouldn't name a quarterback because he says that's for us, not for y'all, talking to the media. Um, I think he's trying to give himself a way out to say, oh, we're in the middle of a quarterback competition. That game taught us a lot about who we want to be going into conference play or whatever. But it was an awkward presser. But the he feels a lot better about his defense. That so we may shut him out, but we may not score 70.
Yeah, that I don't know about scoring that much. I guess my reasoning for that, I can't remember. I think I had it like 52 nothing or something like that. Whatever. But I don't even think that was the right score. I'll have to go back and look at my notes here in a second. But yeah, I don't expect just because I don't expect OU to play that fast to get up to 73. I think that's if they get into the 70s, that means they've had in an inordinate amount of chunk plays because I think one of the more interesting comments Brent Venables made during the presser was, I'm all about putting defense on their heels, but I'm also about game control. And the question was regarding, are you going to play as fast as Levy? I still think they're going to go no huddle, and I still think they're going to go fast. It allows, so if they line up, they have up to 15 seconds for obviously Levy, or excuse me, Latrell to get the play in, right? And or the audible in for Jackson a call before the mic, the audio cuts off in his helmet. So I think that's going to be an interesting part how they handle that. I think you're going to see some rough patches. The good news, they get to iron all that stuff out at home over the first 4 weeks. You don't have to go on the road and try to learn how that audio system works. Did you watch the game? I don't remember what it was where it was this last weekend where they were saying the audio kept cutting out and they couldn't hear the audibles that the coach was saying. Like was cutting out in the middle and they couldn't hear the full play.
I don't remember that.
So I don't remember what game it was, but they were talking about it on the ESPN people were talking about it. I think that is another thing that's going to be interesting as because they're not going to be the college quarterbacks aren't going to be as refined as an NFL quarterback where they can just look at the defense and audible out. So all that stuff's going to be interesting and why I think you're not going to get a lot of these high scoring games this year as it adjusts just this year. I think the stop bearing the lead here. DeMarco Murray is going to miss a game and you can't host recruits for 3 weeks. Is that the first 3 games? They can't host any recruits. Is
No,
that
no,
did
no.
I read that right?
No, it's just the first game.
Or they can't contact for 3 weeks. So how do you get them to the game if you can't contact? When did that start? I guess is a better question. Does that make sense?
From what I understood, reading it all, it was just that DeMarco Murray is suspended for the Temple game and they can't host any recruits for the Temple game, which like
I thought, did you not read that, Travis?
Yeah,
Where they
yeah. There's some type of contact, but it if there were I don't know, maybe a contact situation where maybe the coaches can't set up their visits or something like that. Like
the
they
support
wouldn't.
staff can.
Yeah, I mean, the coaches aren't the one making the flights anyway. I mean, they're not the ones
exactly.
working with the
Yeah.
government.
Well, and
So it's not
placing any sort of restrictions on contact these days is completely frivolous and useless because there are so many ways to
Yeah.
right,
circumvent those.
WhatsApp.
right. But that's the thing. I think if they were like, hey, can't have recruits for the next 3 weeks because you won't find a way to contact them. They just would have said you can't have visits for the next 3 weeks. But honestly, you say we're burying the lead. I think this story is as big of a nothing burger as
Oh,
exists in
totally.
college football. We're not going to
Agreed.
have any visitors anyways because it's a Friday night, and we if there was ever a game where we didn't need DeMarco on the sideline, probably going to be this game. And not to say that he's not an important, valuable piece on the sideline. He absolutely is. But I hope we're going to be able to overcome that against the Temple Owls.
Bring Kel Gundy back for a just for one game to have him coach the
Yep.
running backs. That would be so awesome. I would love that so much. Just for old time's sakes and just kind of to shove it to the
Maybe that's why he was in practice.
yeah, well, and
Think of
guess what?
that.
He did not well, that's not true. He did leave DeMarco's side for a split second to go talk to Mike Hawkins Sr. But outside of that, he
Man.
was with Gale, or with DeMarco. My issue with this whole deal, and it is a nothing burger, but it's a nothing burger because there was no logic in this. So I'm not going to name the teams. You have teams out in the ether in the college football paying for unofficial visits with their collective because there's a loophole that they think they can work around. And yet we're going to monitor phone calls. Trust me, when I put that tweet out, there was people from the athletic department that reached out to me like, "Here, this is what happened. This is why it happened." I said, "My tweet wasn't directed at the OU compliance. It wasn't directed at the OU athletic department. It was directed at the NCAA for being stupid and illogical about everything. You're going to allow everything in the Wild West. Phone calls. Phone calls that are harmless, mind you. They're phone calls. You're not sending it. You're not wiring a kid money for a visit. You're not wiring them money to make a trip illegally. You're not doing any of those things for unofficial visits or buying a car for a kid. You were literally making a phone call, making contact. It was stupid. I don't understand why. And God bless. I'm not going to name the name of the person in the athletic department that reached out. And they were like, "Look, man, the way things are ran right now, it makes it so hard on us because we don't know what to enforce, how to enforce, and when to enforce because it's just all over the place with the NCAA because it's like they're trying to find reasons to like sink their baby teeth into people. And that's essentially what they did. Little baby teeth synced into OU. Up, shame on you for making a few phone calls or text messages or whatever. I don't get it. I'll never get it. Uh,
I I get it. I
it's
understand where the
frivolous,
NCAA.
dude.
No, it is. It absolutely is. And like, don't get it twisted. I
I get
believe
rules
that.
are rules too.
Yeah, well,
So
yeah, and to me, it's because the NCAA has long since realized that they can no longer regulate the spirit of the law, and so in as much as they can, they regulate the letter of the law. Like they
that's
can't.
actually a good
There,
way to put it.
there are loopholes. Everybody knows there are loopholes. Programs exploit those loopholes. But as far as contact via phone, via text, like all of those statutes have been written in the compliance handbook for years and years and years. So they know they can enforce that. And so you step over the line in that regard, they know they can get
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah.
And that's what they're going to do versus, because if you try to bust one of those programs that's using a collective to fund unofficial visits for prospects, then it just becomes a whole soap opera
Yeah.
because there's there's going to be
Loopholes.
combat from the other side. There's going to be a counter strike. There's going to be a case to be made as to why you have absolutely no right to even be investigating this.
Yeah, no, that is 100% correct. And I guess again, I want to make this very clear. Compliance at Oklahoma and the athletic department, they were doing their job. They had to do their job. Everybody's like, why do they self-report? Um, because they're one of the few programs that actually tries to abide by the rules. Like you will see those phone calls that all the fans from Texas and Oklahoma State and whatever are trying to mock OU for getting in trouble for glass houses because we cover recruiting. Yes, we know things. And so we're not going to put it out there, but we know things. And it's just don't.
I tell you, Brandon, and I told you this, but I'll say this on the podcast. I don't mind it. It's
Go
vague
for it.
enough and anonymous enough. I was talking to a recruit over the weekend that had mentioned,
Oh,
yeah, back in the spring, I
mhm,
had a Big Ten school that offered to fly me up there for an unofficial visit. I said, you don't say.
mhm.
But again, that's just, it's not like you can do anything
Glass
with that because that's
houses.
just
Yeah.
exactly that's what happens these days.
The
A lot of
only
schools do it.
the only concern that anybody could actually have about this, like real concern, is DeMarco Murray gets popped now for it. He can't get popped again because then he's a repeat
Well, this
offender.
is like the third time he's been popped for this exact same thing, by the way. Like
Like, but it's you can't continue to
that's why that's
do that
why that's why he
because
got
who knows what the
suspended.
end.
Yeah.
Right, but who
That,
knows? Like the next step, like is it 3 games? Is it in the middle of a season? Is it anything like that? Like this suspension is
Mhm.
again, nothing burger because of the time, the lack of visitors, everything like that. But
Yeah.
like it becomes and now there's precedent that hey, 1 game is what we gave them last time. So the next time you can't not give them like you can't give them equal or less of a punishment.
Yeah.
So that's the thing is that's the only reason that this could actually end up mattering is because now it's setting precedent that we can't have visitors for a game and DeMarco Murray can't be on the sidelines.
You want me to just go ahead and clarify this for everybody? So this took place. I'm not gonna dive any further than this, just so you know, because Parker, think about this. We knew about this back in the summer. Or no, it was spring, back in the spring. Think about this. Remember, there was a period where running backs were not being able to be talked to for a 3 week span. Do you not remember that?
I do not remember that. No.
I
Well, I
remember
told
something
you.
about that. How did I? Maybe you told me.
Maybe I told you. Maybe it was you I told. Yeah. Yeah. So this happened during the spring, if I remember correctly. So I think the contact thing is done. Don't quote me on that. I'm not reporting that as fact because just I was told some contact was made, blah blah blah. There was it was right before um I believe this was before Taylor Tatum even committed, honestly, or right after, one of the two. I can't remember. I don't remember like the exact dates, but this happened like earlier on, if I remember correctly, because this happened, and I don't remember the exact dates. I just remember being told they have not been able to contact, or from people around Taylor Tatum, they haven't been able to, you hadn't been able to contact him because of some thing that happened. And I think this goes back to that, if I remember correctly.
It's
But
coming back. Yes.
you okay? Do you remember
I'm
that
starting to
now?
have a recollection of this
Yeah,
situation now.
yeah. Okay, so this happened. This. I think this is just something that happened a while back, and that's where Demarco. To be fair, the COVID deal dropped like right before all that took place. So, um, granted, in the little document they said, well, he was informed of all this stuff, blah blah blah. I maybe DeMarco says that he wasn't informed or wasn't aware. It's a he said, or he said, she said type deal. But at the end of the day, it's frivolous, and we're monitoring such minute things as Parker, you said. Well, if you can't control the law, you got to control the letter of the law, and that's essentially where we're at. How long do things like this? I guess the question is, do things like this make it to where more college coaches, they're like, okay, you're allowing me to do this, but I can't do this, and you're gonna ding me for this. I'm going to the NFL. Does that
Mm,
make sense?
yeah. Well, and if there's a coach on staff that can make the jump to the
Yep,
NFL,
it is
it'd be
him.
DeMarco. It would be DeMarco. No
Yep.
question about that.
So you don't want that to happen if you're Oklahoma fans. So, anyways, it's one game. It's Temple. Doesn't matter, and
Stan
they're gonna.
Drayton's going to be available after this year. So if DeMarco leaves, I know what call you can make.
You know what? I hope to God nobody records this and like screenshots that if the OU ends up like struggling against Temple or like losing, just
Right.
like
Hey,
Travis, remember when you said this?
If
hey,
I'm fairly
he could still be
certain,
let go no matter if we struggle or not. So
I'm fairly
True.
certain, Brandon, that if Oklahoma were to lose that game, it would be the largest point spread upset in FBS history. If not, it would be
Oh,
top three. I think the record is 42, 43 points, something like that.
who
The
was that?
line
Who
is,
was that?
oh, I can't.
Michigan and App State,
App
right?
State. Yeah, that's
No, it
right.
wasn't. It was actually
No.
more recent than that. It was Howard that won the game. Howard beat somebody as like a 40 plus point underdog
Oh
a
Probably
few
my.
years
A&M.
back. And I believe that's probably A&M. I believe that's the record.
I mean, just a
What
guess.
was theirs? Like, what was the record whenever, what was this? Does anybody remember that?
I believe App State was a 34 point underdog that day.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So
That was awesome.
Yeah. And somehow, some way, they still convinced David Hicks to go play for him. And that still is like the most baffling.
Oh, I'm
oh
talking
wait,
about
wait, you're
OU
talking
lost
about
to K
A&M. I thought
State.
you were talking about
the
Michigan.
Michigan one.
Oh, I thought we were talking about the A&M thing. They lost to who was it they lost
Yeah, they
to?
lost to App State.
They lost
That
to App
It was
helps.
State
App
as
State.
well.
Yeah, that's
I
what I thought.
remember it was before our game, because I was standing at like the Champions tailgate and they had it on the like big screen outside on the video board. Oh man, that was awesome. And I was looking around and it was a bunch like just kind of casual fans, whatnot. I was like, guys, come on, like Come on, this is hilarious. This is hilarious. Come laugh with
If
me. And they're like,
I
"Oh, we got to go get back in line." I'm like, ah.
if I recall correctly, that was the Kent State game, the day of the Kent State game.
Yeah.
And within minutes, you had Texas A&M lose to App State at home and Notre Dame lose to Marshall at home.
Yes.
And then later that evening,
Oh, you
Georgia Southern kicked
struggled.
a walk-off field goal and got Scott Frost fired up in Nebraska. That was an eventful day in college football.
And OU struggled against Kent State for like a whole half until they
That
just
they
pulled
did.
away. It
A
was
good Kent
brutal.
State team, a spunky Kent State team.
Funky.
Yeah, that's it. That was the twist. That was a spin after that. It was like, well, they got one of the best offensive minds in all of college football coaching them. I mean, they're going to be good. Their quarterback's good, and he was, but they weren't that good. OU was just that bad. We just didn't know it up to that point.
Well, and now that the portal is basically taking any good quarterback that's available out, like it's just creating such a chasm between the Kent States. And then not to say the portal wasn't there then, but it's like
Oh
it's
yeah,
more exacerbated now. Like you're just
that was
not
after that season. Yeah.
yeah, you're not going to be able to. I mean, you can hope that like a rising junior just plays out of his mind one year or something like that, and hasn't put anything on film yet. But yeah, gone are those days where you're like, oh yeah, Kent State's got got a good quarterback and got a guy. I mean, unless that's his last year at the program.
I was talking to a group of five coach last night, and he said, man, look, our freshman class is awesome. These dudes are going to be special if we can keep them. And that's kind of the caveat that every
Oh,
single one of those programs has these days is, oh, yeah, we're going to like 2, 3 years from now, we're going to be awesome if we can convince these guys to stick around. Because for so many G5 guys, the second you pop off with a strong individual performance or two, it doesn't even really have to be like a season long type deal. If you have
mhm.
one or two good games on national television that gets your name out there amongst the press on social media, all that stuff, you can hop in the portal at the end of the season and P4s will be fighting over you.
instead of instead of coaches getting in trouble for shaving points or anything, the coaches now are going to be shaving stats. They're like, no, we need that wide receiver back next year. Just
Well,
not throw him the ball in the whole second half. I can't have him putting up a 100-yard game because we've got this game's televised, so make him look real bad. So
did you
they're
see
shaving
people doing
stats
that?
players to try and keep them in town.
Well, they're doing the stat padding. Like I can't remember where it was, but there was some linebacker that has like an inordinate amount of home tackles compared to away
Oh, the
tackles
old
in college
Dominion
football.
kid. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, well, that was it. Yeah, that was a situation where it looked like the home scorekeepers were just, all right, we're gonna get this guy in the Buckets conversation.
Gonna happen. Um, so gone are the days of the Caden Salters of the world staying at Liberty after a while, or the Coastal Carolinas coming up and being good, is what you're saying, Travis. Um, Unfortunate, and you, Parker, you said it as well. I still think, and because Parker works the UTEP scene, I think that staff's probably gonna they're on their way up. That staff is rolling and rocking right now. So let's talk OU UTEP and the 24th season SEC. OU's in the SEC. If you didn't know. Um, Expectations, Travis. We haven't talked to you. You haven't been on here. Your expectations going into this season, Temple notwithstanding. What's your expectations for Oklahoma? Maybe even kind of dumb it down before they get to conference play. Like, what are you looking for with this OU team?
I'm looking for in the non-conference play for it to be painfully obvious in the trenches that we're an SEC team, and I think that's what matters most. You get a lot of these teams, your Georgias and your LSU's over the years, and older OU teams that when they showed up on the field, I remember Todd McShay back at the TU game like a decade ago when he was on the sideline reporting, and he's like, "This Oklahoma team, they're monsters. Like they're just big.
Yeah.
Like they don't even look like they play the same sport as Tulsa." We haven't been able to say that in a while. And when you look at the depth charts from like 4 or 5 years ago, where our like nose tackles, like I think we have like one 300 pounder, and then everybody else is like 280. Like It's just you, I want us to look like an SEC team in the trenches where after the game we're going, oh well, they couldn't do anything. They couldn't run the ball. They were throwing. They had to get the ball out quick. They had to try and get bubbles going or anything like that because they just had no time. They were getting bullied. You didn't have to run stunts and twists and all these exotic blitzes and anything because you were just able to manhandle them on the front lines. That's what I'm looking for, and it's I know that can't be quantified really, but you know it when you see it, right? Like you just know it when like when you're watching a fight, you maybe you're not a professional scorekeeper, but you can tell who's won the fight afterwards, right?
Yeah.
So looking for that in non-conference play specifically, because I do think we have gotten bigger on the line. We just need to keep it simple. Don't rely on anything. Keep all that stuff in the back pocket and just manhandle the opponent on the way to a 4-0 start, 3-0 start.
Parker?
Yeah, I'd love to
Thoughts?
see OU. I'd love to see this goes back to a message board post that we had on OUinsider.com like a month and a half ago. I think it would actually be super funny to watch OU play like a 5-2 defense the first 3 games of the season. Just like smash mouth it, like, go full throttle, old school, like
Man to man on the outsides all day.
straight up, and then just play between the tackles football and off it. No, in all seriousness, though, I agree. I think it's a great point, Travis. I would like to see this Oklahoma defense just manhandle the opposition because they should be able to, right? Like they absolutely should be able to have their way up front, both offensively and defensively, with Temple, Tulane, and Houston. And then what I really want to see, guys, is I want to see this backfield get off to a strong start because I think that's going to be crucial for this offense's um, complementary nature, I suppose, as well as just the overall confidence level in the unit, both internally and externally, because I don't think hardly anybody questions that Oklahoma's passing attack is going to make some stuff happen
Yeah.
once SEC play rolls around with how much talent they have at the wide receiver position. I mean, how much of a boost is it if you really do see a version of Brennan Thompson that isn't just a deep threat, but a weapon at all 3 levels. And
Mm.
you toss that in alongside Nick Anderson and Deion Burks and Andrell Anthony and Jalil Farouk, who you know can make plays at all 3 levels. As long as Jackson Arnold can get him the football effectively, and there's no reason to believe that he won't be able to do that, then you don't really sweat the passing offense. What I want to see is through the first 3 games of this season, starting this Friday against Temple, what I want to see is, and this kind of goes hand in hand with just winning the battle up front, demonstrate an ability to run between the tackles
Mm.
effectively with this backfield, regardless of who the back may be, if it's Gavin Sawchuk, if it's Javante Barnes. Like I feel at some point in non-con play, you're going to see a healthy dose of all 5 of those guys that are listed on the depth chart: Sawchuk, Barnes, Tatum, Sam Franklin, and Caleb Hicks. And so to me, that would go a long way toward distinguishing 2023 from 2024, because what was the one thing that kind of marred Oklahoma's season last year offensively? It was the fact they really, especially for the entire first half of the season, could not run the ball. Could not run the ball between the tackles. Tawi Walker had a little bit of success, but that was about it, man. Marcus Major averaged 3.9 yards per carry. And I get that some of that has to do with the fact that Barnes and Sawchuk were banged up. But I think it's going to be a great thing for this offense if you can build some belief through the first 3 games of the season, the tune-ups, if you will, that the rushing offense is going to be no less potent, or at least not significantly less potent than the passing attack.
Yeah, I'm with you, both of you guys. I want to see the edge rushers like get home. Like I think that to me has been it's been Ethan Downs has been good. I want to get that out there. So he's been good. He's been second team all SEC or all Big 12 back to back years, right? Well, you're in the SEC now. You need some guys that are going to get home. And I think having a stronger interior D line is going to allow for Downs and R. Mason Thomas and PJ Adebawara and Caden Woolard, like, and Danny Okoye all to get home. Like, I think they're going to be able to get home now, and make some sacks. So I want to see one of those guys have at least 2 sacks by the end of the first 3 games. Like, just one of them. That's you just need that to happen. And if they don't need to have, like, I can't remember what was his name that had 4 sacks in one game. Oh my gosh, and then he like just disappeared off the
And
face
then
of
had
the
like
earth.
one sack the rest of the season.
Yeah,
Um,
it's from Tennessee. I just went blank. Parker, defensive end. He was in the
James
2020
James
class.
Pierce.
No, no, no. For OU.
Oh,
He did it in 2022. He had like, I think it was it against Nebraska that he had like 4 sacks or 3 sacks, right?
and you said he was from Tennessee?
Yeah, he's originally from Tennessee out of high school.
Uh,
Or 44, right? Or 40? No, 40 is Ethan, but 44? Oh my
I
gosh. He just graduated too. Oh my gosh. He transferred, but he graduated before he transferred.
why we shouldn't do these in the morning.
Yeah,
Josh Ellison,
no, defensive end.
defensive
Uh,
end,
yeah,
transferred
that
from OU.
from OU. Oh, it's killing
Oh,
me. He was
Reggie Grimes. Reggie
Reggie
Grimes.
Grimes. He
Holy
was, I was to
smokes.
say, he
How
was
did
a
that
top
take
50
so long?
player in the country when he came out of high school. I am like losing. We're all losing our mind. We apologize, folks. Like, this is, I've been up to I was up till 5:45 in the morning because I have a sick baby girl, and these guys are just delirious because we're doing this in the morning. So we apologize. Um,
Reggie Grimes.
yeah, Reggie Grimes. I mean, I don't want it to be like that. They need to continue to show production. Like, that dude just was a ghost after that game.
He
So,
just looked so slow after
but
that game.
it was such a cool moment because remember his grandma passed away like right before that took place. So that was like it was a really cool deal that took place. He said he felt like she was with him the whole time. Um, but yeah, I want the edge rushers to get home. I want them to actually, like, I think that's been the biggest question mark on the defense the last 2 seasons is where are the edge rushers at as far as getting sacks, right? Outside of Ethan Downs on a regular basis. Um, they're talented enough. And I think having a healthy R. Mason Thomas, you saw it in the Arizona game. He was a going crazy. He only had 1 sack, but he about had 5 others or 6 others in that game. He was awesome at rushing the passer. So I like that. I would probably tend to go with the other thing. I want to see how Bauer Sharp's used. I think that is critical for a young quarterback to have a bailout and your bailout be a really good tight end. Bauer Sharp, um, obviously, um, trying to think who else is
Jake
playing.
Roberts.
Nate Roberts. Trying to think who else was
Jake
playing.
Roberts.
Yeah, and Jake Roberts. Yeah, Jake Roberts. Yep. Not Nate Roberts. You said Nate Roberts. I was like, nope, he's going to Ohio State, brother.
I said Jake the whole time. You said you're the one that brought
did,
up
did
Nate.
I? Did you? Oh,
I
did I
said
say it?
Jake.
See, I'm so delirious, man.
Thank
Jake
God we're
Roberts.
recording this.
Yeah, Jake Roberts.
The record reflect that I said Jake Roberts,
Hey, I'll
Okay.
tell you guys though.
not Jeff, not Nate.
I'll tell you guys. I know, like I imagine with the knowledge that Nick Anderson is going to miss this game on Friday, that probably creates a lot more buzz, even more so than there has been early this week for Brennan Thompson and the role that he's going to
Mhm.
play. But with Nick on the shelf, might be JJ Hester time.
918, stand up.
Yeah, my guy, my
I've been
guy.
stumping for that guy since, oh man, long time.
Yeah,
Since
that's
before
my
he.
dude, bro. That's my guy right there. I love that kid so much. He's
So
a good kid.
I kind of want to. All right, so definitely Brandon on the edges. We were told all last year, oh, it's just because they're doing max protect, they're doing max protect, they're doing max protect.
They were. That's true.
They
There
were,
was a
but
lot of
I
that.
think part of the reason they do that is because we really struggled in the zone last year. Like zone coverage has been a problem for a while now. So that gets better. I think you start. I
Well,
mean,
if you have zone, you don't get home to make sacks. The quarterback has all day. Of course, they're going to find. because the wide
Right,
receivers find open pockets in the zone.
right.
That
But
the interior guys got to start collapsing the pocket and
I
allowing
agree.
others. Yeah.
But on to Parker's point, talking about establishing the run game, like I remember being on this pod last year with you guys, and every week it was all right. Who's gonna, lead the team in rushing? Who's gonna start at running back? And for like 7 weeks in a row, we got it wrong because it was a crapshoot.
Yeah.
But it was so we were having to manufacture a run game with Dylan Gabriel, which worked like a charm against Texas, thank God.
Boy, it did.
But it was just I want to see the running backs. If we're going to establish the between the tackles run game, it's got to be because they stay healthy. Sawchuk banged up last year. Javante Barnes banged up something from high school. Marcus Major was banged up as he had been throughout his entire career. Tawi Walker against Oklahoma State ran for a touchdown on one leg. Like
Yeah.
there was just there the problem with the running back room last year was, hey, yeah, we couldn't establish a steady run game. It's because we had no consistency in that room whatsoever from a health standpoint. I think if you have consistency in that room last year, I think you see a consistent run game. I think this year with Seth Luttrell calling the plays, and I think it was Barnes that said, "Man, Seth talks about how we're going to run the ball all the time." Like I think if there's one thing I'm betting on this season, it's that the run game will show up.
Who do you think? So the run game got really good at the end of the year, the last 5 games, because Salchuk just took over.
Right.
Um, how many yards do you think he has? I said 1,200. Somebody asked me that question in our VIP chat yesterday. I said I think 1,200 plus and like 10 touchdowns, 10 or 12 touchdowns or something like that rushing. I don't think that's too much to ask in a 13 game season, right? Like,
If it's as run heavy of an offense as we're led to believe through interviews,
Yeah.
I don't think that's ridiculous. I was going to say 1,100, but that's not too far off. That's
yeah.
one big broken run away from being 12. So
Exactly.
yeah, I think so.
And he'll have the opportunity to pad the stats a little bit in non-con play because with his speed, that home
Mhm.
run hitting ability, he's gonna have a long touchdown run or two before Tennessee comes to town.
Does he have a 50 plus yard run on Friday night? I say yes.
Mm, I don't know about him individually. I'm counting on multiple plays of 50 plus yards for Oklahoma as a team. I don't know
I'll
who they
say it.
come
I think
from,
Salchuk
but
does.
We will see how many long fields Oklahoma will have to deal with because
Fair. That's
you can't
fair.
have
That's
a 50
fair.
yard
That's
run
fair.
if you start your drive at the opponent's 45.
That's fair. Um,
here's what
That's
I
the old
think.
video game stuff. How you have to pad your stats in video games. You run all the way back to the one, run out of bounds, and then you can pad your stats.
Here's what I think Oklahoma should do. I think at some point in the game, once it's well in hand, you you start marching down the field on another scoring drive. Just call off the dogs at around the 35-yard line. Send Tyler Keltner out for a 50-plus yard field goal. If he makes it, he wins the job. If not, it's the Zach Schmidt show.
oh, there's people literally wanting to jump through their computer screens and television screens and just like strangle you right now. Like
Why?
strangle
Because
you.
I talked about the kickers.
You talked
Well,
about
I'm all
Zach
about it.
Schmidt.
Introduce a little,
Like just you bring up the words Zach and Schmidt, and like OU fans start like convulsing and with PTSD, just not liking it at all.
I'm
Hey,
here.
And he's a good kid, and I think
90%
he's going
of
to be a good kicker.
he hit 90% of his kicks in fall ball
Yeah,
per Brent Venables. So
good. I
maybe
hope
he
he's
got
good to
better.
shut
Maybe he
everybody up,
got better. And
including
guess
us.
what? That happens. Guys get better over the
Yeah,
course of an off season. That
Yeah,
happens.
I am here for the Zach Schmidt redemption tour. Like,
me
I'm
too.
100% here for it. I hope, like, if I could wish for probably one thing this year, it would be for a deep walk off Zach Schmidt Texas winner. Like, because no matter what anybody ever says about Zach Schmidt, you got to throw it out the window if he kicks a game winner against Texas. He's an instant legend. Sorry, stamped as an OU legend if you walk it off against Texas in the Cotton Bowl. No
Yeah,
matter what he did before it, does not matter. So that would be like my my regular season like wish of one play, that would be it.
I think one OU fans are going, that's the one wish you want, Travis, is you're gonna wish for a walk-off kick and not a national title?
In one play, you can't win a national title in one play. Just
Yes,
one
you
play.
can.
Regular season, regular
You have a walk-off kick in the national title.
regular season, one win.
Okay.
Give me Zach
Okay.
Schmidt with the walk off.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. What's your record prediction for this year? We haven't had you on, so we gotta get it going into the season. What's your record prediction?
10-2.
You and Parker. Look at you. Look at you, homers.
Yeah, Drum's the pessimist here. He's the
Win
cynic.
win your home games, and then I think we beat Texas. I think we beat Missouri.
Look,
I think we beat Auburn. Maybe Ole Miss, LSU on the road. You
I have
drop, but I don't think Texas is nearly as good as people are saying. They don't have any running backs left. I just got a call from Sark this morning asking if I had any eligibility left to go play running back, and there's they have done nothing to shore up the interior, their defensive line. Everybody wants to talk about Quinn and this, that, and the other. It was their run defense that got them to the playoff last year. It was not Quinn Ewers. That's why when you made it to the playoff, he was the best quarterback in the playoff. He was the only play. Everybody says, "Oh, you'll get Heisman votes if you're, the best player on the best team." Well, Quinn, super hyped, playoff team. What do you get? Didn't finish in the top 10 of Heisman votes. Like, it's that Texas won last year because of Sweat and Murphy, and they have not replaced those two. And I think they're going to struggle running the ball, and I think they're going to struggle stopping the run. And those are two things that you don't want to be bad at the same time. So Michigan is going to give them all they want and then some. I think Missouri doesn't reload to the level needed to compete. I know we're like the only tough game on their schedule, it feels like. But I feel like we beat Texas. I feel like we beat Missouri. I think we win our home games. Yeah, 10-2.
Okay. Well,
What do
I'm
you
a
have
nine,
at that?
nine
Six
and
and
three.
six?
No, 9-3. I have 9-3. I had a loss at Auburn just because it's so hard to play at Auburn. Like even now,
Have you seen
granted,
their
yeah,
home record over the last 2 years, 3 years?
I get it, but everybody says that it just weird stuff happens in Auburn on the plains. Um, I can't remember who else. I had a loss at LSU, and then I can't remember who the third loss was. Who was my third loss, Parker?
Wasn't it
Probably
Ole
not them.
Miss? You
Yeah, I
didn't
was
lose
at
to
Ole
Ole
Miss.
Miss.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
See, the
That was
Auburn,
it. But I thought they beat everybody else. They beat Missouri. They beat Alabama. I still said I think they if they're 9-3, they make the playoffs, and I wholeheartedly believe that.
I think depending on who makes up the 9-3, yeah, I think so too. But it's what Auburn reminds me of. Do you remember? I know I shared it on Twitter like 2 years ago, but there all kinds of people still, I guess, have it bookmarked or whatever. It's when Herbie and Fowler and Bear are in the back of that Suburban with red Solo cups, drinking who knows what, and they're talking about College Station and about
Mhm.
how, oh, is it an intimidating environment, blah blah blah, and they're like, it's a great environment, but is it intimidating? Like, are you scared to walk in there? And this was before they beat what, Bama there. And he was like, "What big games have they won in College Station? Like what? Their record at College Station over the
Yeah.
last 100 years is like not that great. So if it's so great and so intimidating, like separating those two, I think is worthwhile. Is it a great atmosphere because you got 100,000 people going nuts and this, that, and the other? Sure. Are other teams scared to go in there? Well, looking at Auburn's record over the last few years at home, I don't know how scared they are. So I think it can be a great environment while also not making people totally freaked out of going in there. LSU, that's a scary environment.
Yeah, well, okay. Just to clear this whole thing up, Jackson Arnold talked, um, obviously to a few of the SEC
Harken back,
quarterback.
right?
Yeah, yeah, he was one of them, and that's where I he told him, he said, dude, it's tough to play in that place. Like Don't get it twisted. And I don't think they're
I think that
scared. I
it's
just
hurt.
think it's just crazy. It's just weird stuff happens. Is kind of what he said. It's just weird stuff happens down there. So we'll see. Obviously, but 9-3, you're still in the playoff with
Yeah.
that schedule.
And
You're in the
I,
playoff.
man, wouldn't I love to be wrong for the sake of this fan base and their collective level of sanity? But I've learned to set my watch to one bizarre Oklahoma loss at least
Mm-hmm.
every single year. Never know what it is, and it always sneaks up on you, but yet it always seems to happen. Be it I Oklahoma State, like keep in mind, Oklahoma State lost to South Alabama, got destroyed by South Alabama on their home field last year, and then beat Oklahoma on that very field 2 months
Are you
later.
talking about Oklahoma
West
State?
Virginia, yeah, West
Yeah.
Virginia, uh, in 2022, that was a bizarre one. Shoot, Baylor in 2021, that one just felt surreal.
But see,
Like that,
I think that I think this is
I think it
where
has to do with the
I,
schedule.
I get pushback on this all the time, but that's where I think the SEC grind helps us.
That's what I was about. That's what I said. I think it has to
Like
do with the schedule. You get
everybody
bored.
talks like,
Yeah.
yeah, we used to drop one because we didn't prepare. It's impossible to motivate people. I was on SEC Unfiltered and talked with them about like, hey, if you had to interview Kirby Smart today and then interview Nick Saban tomorrow, you would prepare much differently than if you were interviewing me. And that's okay. It's human
ooh.
nature, right? Like you would get
Mhm.
more sleep. You wouldn't go have beers with the boys afterwards. You would probably watch some of the other interviews that they've done and kind notes of, this, that, and the other. Like that's what the move to the SEC does for Oklahoma that I don't think a lot of people are talking about. It locks them in a way that you can't coach. Like you can sit there and be the best motivator you can possibly be at Oklahoma. And if you get, you've got Tech, West Virginia, and Oklahoma State on the schedule, and your team knows that they're more talented, like it's just human nature that you're not going to get the best out of them. And I don't care. People will knock a coach for not getting the best out of them. No coach can outmaneuver human nature. I'm sorry.
No, you're right. And I think the other thing that really works into this team in their hands at like this year is and really plays into them is the fact that they're viewed as the eighth best team in the SEC. These players, all they've ever done is be viewed as one of the top two teams in the Big 12, if not the best team in the Big 12. Throughout their whole lifetime, that's all they've seen Oklahoma be. That's all they know. Even in a 6 and 7 year, Oklahoma talent wise was still viewed as one of the best. They lost 5 games by a grand total, or yeah, 5 games by what, 15 points grand total, three in a row by three. They by 3 points, five straight times, five in a row by 3 points, last second field goals because they just had awful luck. And that's never going to be replicated again. But it goes to you're so used to being the top dog to now people view you as kind of the stepchild coming into the SEC. Nobody understands why. You're a blue blood, but that's going to piss these guys off and they're going to be more focused because of that. So I don't know that there's going to be that letdown game. I just think the grind is going to get Venables talks about it all the time. 11 different teams they have to prepare for that they've never seen. They don't know how they click. They don't understand their culture. They're going to by the time they get done playing them, but they're going in blind. While these teams just have to prepare for Oklahoma and Texas. They know everybody else in the league. Does that make sense? So like it's going to be more difficult. You're going to have to be more focused throughout the season, regardless. And like you said, Travis, I think that helps immensely. Plus, it's the most talented roster Oklahoma's had since what, 2021? 4 years. It's been a while. So we'll see.
I mean,
Um,
I think it's more talented than the 2021 roster.
no, yeah. I mean, Caleb Williams at quarterback
Because
and
right, but we're
um,
planning on playing both sides of the ball
right,
too.
right. No,
So,
well, they had Perion
and
Winfrey,
the
Isaiah
roster has on it.
Thomas. They had Isaiah
The
Thomas. They had
roster
Tate
had dudes
Bonito.
on it.
I I tend to think that that 2021 team, that 2021 team had a championship roster in my mind.
Mhm.
It did not have championship coaching, and that's where things fell apart down the stretch.
Agreed. Travis is froze.
I get that, but like, oh no.
You're good. You're good.
You
We
let me
hear
know when
you.
I'm back.
You're back. Nope, no, you're not. Let's okay. We'll move on because you're kind of are you okay? You're back. Go for it.
The
Go
whole
for it.
point of the 2021 thing was you're naming guys that made NFL teams or or were fringe like UDFAs. Like I think you have you have like more than a handful of high draft pick like guys on this defense is my only difference. Is like, yeah, you've got your guys, your Perion Winfrey's, and obviously Nick is went what second round. Like you've got guys that went to the league, but I'm talking like you could have multiple first round guys on defense on this defense right now that we're about to see. And that just 2021 wasn't close to
And
that.
Brian Asamoah too. That's your boy, right?
The level of top end
Striker?
talent. Thank God. I thought he was on the block for a minute. Everybody was like, "Hey, I don't think Brian's going to make the team." I was like, "He's got to." So, but you get what I'm saying. Like we're talking about guys that are hanging on to roster spots here, whereas when these guys when this team cycles through the draft, it's going to be special.
All right. Let's get our game predictions for Friday night and close out this podcast.
52-3, Oklahoma over the Owls of Temple. That is my prediction.
55-7. So 55-7. I do think we do get a field goal over 40 yards to go through the wickets, if you will.
Mine was 45-0. So I'll stick with it. 45-0. Big old goose egg to open up the season. Not quite a 73-0 romper like they did Arkansas State last year. I could see them getting into the 50s very easily, maybe even the 60s, but at 70s, I just don't see it. I just do not see them playing at that type of pace. Just not yet, not this early in the season. They're not going to do that. So, 45-0. All right, that's going to do it for this version of the initial version of the 2024 season's OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners pregame show. For Travis Davison, for Parker Thune, my name is Brandon Drum. We will see you on the postgame.